Hello, welcome back to Part 2, Episode 4 of Putting the Truth Back into True Crime. In this episode, we're going to read and discuss the multiple reports that law enforcement received stating that Bryan Kohberger was innocent and or that they could prove it. We'll discuss the lawyer who told Moscow PD that Bryan's knife was potentially stolen and the different suspect vehicles that match the description of the vehicle law enforcement were originally looking for. Apparently, you don't say like and subscribe at the start of a video. I'm new here. So, wait till the end. And if you like it, like and subscribe, please. I've also enabled captions if you're struggling with my accent. Let's get into it. That door makes me feel like I'm a producer. Like I'm the real deal. Anyway, let's get into it. In June 2024, a lady with the initials HH reached out to law enforcement to tell them that she had information that would clear Bryan Kohberger of the homicides. She did not state what the information was and requested a phone call. The officer stated he attempted to interview her about her statement, but she did not answer. He left a voicemail asking her to call him back. He states he had not received a phone call back, but if he's able to contact her, he will offer an additional report. Of course, like any normal framed investigation, the officer closed the file and never thought about the evidence that could clear Bryan Kohberger again. That is, until November, when HH reached out to law enforcement again. This time, the report states that the caller is advising that she is trying to reach the attorney for Bryan Kohberger. She was a mandated reporter/victim advocate and is advising that she has information that would prove Bryan's innocence. She sent the attorney a letter for someone to confirm that they are representing Kohberger. The report states that they called when they returned home and she advised she had sent a letter to Ann Taylor's office with information and did not wish to disclose what she knew to the officer. She stated she had never met Kohberger or spoken to him, but she knew that he wasn't the individual that committed the murders. She went on to say that the FBI would know her name and that she doesn't want any further involvement with the case, and hung up. The officer then states that due to her unwillingness to provide him with information, there was nothing more that he could do. So, the fact that she's a mandated reporter tells me that this is someone who feels obligated, and she's also went out of her way to contact twice now within months. She reached out to law enforcement and Ann Taylor, and it clearly is something that she's been hesitant about but had felt responsible and had to do. On the 29th of June 2024, someone by the name SG emailed a tip into the tip line. She stated that she had information about Kohberger and a man named NT. G claimed to have tangible proof that Bryan Kohberger was framed. The officer said that she didn't answer, so he left a voicemail. He did not receive a call from SG. He attempted to call her again on the 30th of July. This is a month later. She did not say anything and then hung up. At the time of writing, he wrote he was unable to speak to her after making one single attempt. The report was written on the 30th of July. As you can see, there was zero attempt made to contact her for a month. He made one single attempt to call her again, wrote this report and called it a day. When there are multiple people contacting you and telling your office the same thing, don't you think that something should warrant a little more effort than just one phone call? One voicemail? Then there's the lawyer that I touched on in part 1. I've verified who he is, and as far as I can see, he's still a practicing lawyer. He reached out in January of 2024 to Pullman PD and multiple other agencies to state that James Fry's relative, Andy Fry, was the WSU accommodations officer for students at the time and that he had access to Bryan Kohberger's apartment. He states that Bryan was getting too close to solving a crime that happened on WSU campus and that he believed that's why they went into his apartment and stole his knife. Now the thing is, they both have the same surname, but they spell them differently. So, the guy who reported it, the lawyer, he went on a date with Andy Fry, so I'm assuming that he'll know for sure that he's his relative. Their family branches must have just decided to spell their names differently. It does happen. Everything this man says checks out. His other emails do seem a little hectic, but everything he said is true. He is a lawyer, Andy was the residence manager at WSU. He did leave and go to the OSU Cascades. The tip was sent in January 2024, and it must have been around the same time that Andy left WSU because he started in OSU in 2024. So he left WSU in 2024, and a month after this email was received, James Fry retired from Moscow PD. Is it another coincidence? I think not. Other than both of them leaving their places of employment around the same time the tip came in, it doesn't seem law enforcement actioned this any further. Then there's this message thread where a woman states that she was raped by a Pullman police officer. He'd arrested her partner, and whilst he was in the back of a police car, the officer returned to the residence and sexually assaulted her. In her message, she calls Pullman PD things like the Pullman Rape Department full of rapists and drug lords. In the message, she also mentions Bryan Kohberger. She wrote, "Don't get me started on Kohberger. He did nothing. Y'all are the criminals. Welcome to the truth." She says they've to stop letting rapists perform work with baby college students. I'm not sure if anyone would go to these lengths unless they felt like they were extremely hurt and abandoned. That's what these messages give me. Also, the emoji at the end, that broke my heart because it just feels like she's telling the truth and she's had enough. But for her to also say that she knows that Bryan did nothing and that they're the criminals, that just screams there's something going on that people know about. It's obvious that none of these people knew Bryan Kohberger, so the only thing that makes sense is that they knew the real perpetrator. For law enforcement to completely disregard all of these claims shows the level of weaponised incompetence apparent in this case. Now let's briefly discuss the vehicle. Originally, Moscow PD were looking for a white, tan or silver sedan. They have a witness at the scene just prior to 4 a.m, stating very clearly that she's seen a tan sedan. She gave a description of the driver as spaced out, etc. Even after the vehicle experts had looked at this car for almost 2 whole weeks, they still couldn't tell whether or not it was white, tan or silver. As the email dated the 25th of November states, that was their description, white, tan or silver. By the 28th of November, law enforcement had sent out an email stating that the car was white in a 2011 to 2013 Elantra, definitely. Pullman PD started canvassing the area and got all vehicles that matched their description. Remember, they were asked to look for a white 11 to 13 Elantra with no black plates and a shark fin type antenna. By the time this email was sent, Bryan Kohberger's vehicle had Washington plates. His expired at the end of the month, by the way. This isn't actually that suspicious. He was obligated to get new ones. So he had front and back plates on his car, and his car was a 15 to 16 model. His vehicle didn't match the criteria. Despite this, his vehicle was included anyway. This was the first time they heard of Bryan Kohberger, apparently, although Detective Payne testifies under oath that they didn't hear of him until his name was provided as a tip on the 19th of November. But would you believe it if I told you that law enforcement never mentioned the potential of this vehicle being a 2011-2016 Elantra until the arrest affidavit? They made clear to the public on multiple occasions that they were looking for a 2011 to 2013 Elantra, and only after Bryan Kohberger was arrested did they say that their expert thought that it could have been anything from an 11 to a 16 Elantra. There's only 2 reports from either agency that could indicate that law enforcement looked into any other vehicle than a white Elantra. Nothing to actually confirm that they looked into a silver or a tan sedan, but I'll leave you with this. On the morning of the 13th of November afternoon, while one of the Moscow PD were interviewing Bethany Funk outside 1122 King Road, a tan sedan drives past the crime scene. It doesn't have a shark fin antenna, but it doesn't make me feel any less suspicious. In the next episode, I'll discuss Moscow PD's initial suspect, Jose Cruz, who actually lives in the same apartment complex as Bryan Kohberger, his suspicious past, and how his friend that he was with the night of the murders actually drove a vehicle that matched the description. Thanks for tuning in. See you next time.